If you follow my channel for a while, you probably recognize this guy. This is Marty, my 2018 Mazda CX-5 Grand Touring Package, my daily driver. Had it for about 18 months now. I actually did a video when I first got it. I'll put it up in the corner here. And since then, I've added about 25,000 miles to it, and we just crossed the 50,000 mile mark. I'm gonna give you a spoiler alert because I still freaking love this car. It is awesome. But that being said, things happen in that time period, and we're at about a midlife crisis, I guess. Sorry, Marty. So let's take a look around and see what's happened in those 50,000 miles. Let's start outside. Marty's all shined up, looking good, but there's kind of a problem with that because every time it gets shined up, I see all the scratches in the paint, just a lot of surface scratches that can probably be professionally fixed. But it's one issue that I was told about before I got it was that the Mazda paint is really thin, and it's probably not picking up on camera so much here, but I think the previous person had like kids and juggled keys a lot because the front door and the back door have a lot of these light scratches. And one thing I didn't notice, which still drives me crazy, and it's totally my fault, but when I bought this, it was during like a huge rainstorm that lasted like a whole week, so the sun was never really out. Well, the person that owned it before definitely covered up some major scratches. This is all touch-up paint here. It runs along the whole side of the car. Hopefully that's picking up on camera. You can see it here and back here. There's a ton. This is all touch-up paint, and it drives me nuts every time I see my car. Like, I can't even explain how much it bothers me, but at least it's on the passenger side, so I don't have to look at it all the time. But that being said, if you do have a Mazda, just beware that the paint is really thin and scratches very easily. But I mean, look at this car. It still looks fantastic. Most people think it's like brand new. That's because the 2024 models look almost exactly the same. This car has been out for 7 years, and I would say it's still the best looking car in its class. Now, since then, Mazda has released a very similar model, the CX-50. It's supposed to be basically the same car, just a little bit more rugged. But here's the thing, this car, the CX-5, is made in Japan, and that new CX-50 is made in Alabama. Right, so I'm gonna trust the car that's made in Japan to last a little bit longer, especially since I've had one for a while now, and I haven't had any major problems. Now, the CX-5 is not gonna change till at least 2026, so I got a good year and a half of still looking like I got a brand new car. Besides the paint, the only wear and tear issue that I've really seen on the outside is just that this piano black trim on the B-pillar is actually starting to peel just a little bit. I don't want to pull it too much, but you can see it's kind of coming off from the weather stripping. Other than that, this car has held up very nicely. And after 50,000 miles, you probably wouldn't expect the tires that came from the factory to be on this car, and that is the case here as well. I actually made a video of when I changed the tires because I did something a little different. I had Tire Rack actually show up to my house and install the tires on site. I'll give you a link to check that out. Now, in this Grand Touring package, you did get 19, so these were not cheap tires. I'm gonna go over that at the end. And I did pay up a little bit because I got Pirellis. About 15,000 miles in on these tires, and they're still holding up very well. So overall, I'm pretty happy with them. There's literally nothing to report to you under the hood, and that's good news, because if there was, it would be bad things, and nothing bad has happened to this. This engine has been flawless, except for the way I've treated it. I'm sure you're judging me on how dirty it is under here right now. The only thing I will say is it's a little bit slow. You see, in 2018, this was the only engine offered on the CX-5. Well, now they have a turbocharged version of this same exact engine. I've yet to drive it, but I've heard that it is way faster. So if I ever do decide to upgrade my CX-5, I'm gonna go with the turbo model. Before going to the front seat, I just want to show you the back seat and the trunk area quick because it's perfection. For one, I'd never really have people back here, but I do put a lot of stuff back here. Marty is a work car. I don't just baby it. I actually throw a lot of gear in here for work and stuff. And one thing I think I forgot to show on the video when I got it is this back seat is a little different. Most of the time you're gonna get a 60-40 rear seat. That means usually the half will be attached to one of the sides, but this one's different. You can do either side. You can either do just that one and then do these in pieces like this, And you can do the same thing on the other side, or you can put it all back and you can just have what they like to call a ski pass through in just the center. Kind of a neat idea. And you get a nice center armrest with heated seats in the back too. A lot of times you're not going to find the heated seats for the back passengers as well. And then to the back, I have the power liftgate on this one, which is very much appreciated because when I have a car that doesn't have it, I really do actually miss it. And I had this mat installed to kind of keep everything protected here. I'll put a link to that if you want to check it out. And thankfully, I've never had to use the spare tire. Onto the inside, the door materials, which I noted in my initial review are all very nice, are holding up fantastically. A little bit of discoloring here, but I just need to clean them up and they'll actually look like brand new again. These seats are real leather, and I am in and out of my car like 10 to 20 times a day, no joke. It's a lot of short trips. I'm in and out, so the bolsters have gotten a lot of action, and I haven't conditioned them as much as I should. I think just twice in the year and a half I've owned it, so that's on me. I should really be on that more. And you can see in comparison that the passenger seat, let me get rid of all my sunglasses, looks a lot better in comparison. So I think it's normal. If this was like the fake leather, the vinyl, plastic, whatever it is, the seats would actually probably look better, but then you wouldn't have real leather. The steering wheel on the Grand Touring is also real leather, so you're gonna expect some wear there too from your greasy hands. It's not just my bad hygiene. Anyone that would happen to. It actually shines it up a little better if you look at it. And the only thing that I can think of that really got damaged is this little parking brake button. You see this like fake silver trim that's really just plastic. It's starting to peel just a little bit. I know it's so minor, but it also really bothers me. And one thing that was kind of odd is this has the upgraded Bose sound system in it. And on the passenger side, this little tweaker speaker in the A pillar, I could hear it starting to rattle sometimes on songs with high bass. And I was getting to the point where I was like, maybe I have to replace that. And then it just magically fixed itself. So I don't know what happened, but the stereo system sounds amazing again. I'm going to start it up so I can actually prove to you it's got 50,000 miles, and I'm not lying to you. So here we go. Actually 52,000. I've been a little bit behind on my videos, and Marty is reminding me that it needs a service soon. I'm just going to clear that message, but oil change next week. So it says I'm averaging about 23 miles to the gallon. It's actually a little better than that. It's around 25. And I think that's pretty decent for this car. It's not a hybrid and it's not babied. I drive it pretty fast, so I'm fairly happy with the gas mileage. I'm actually glad it's on this screen here. You can get plenty of others to go through, but I want to go back to that one I was on. The gas gauge, it's a little funky. Now, this is a 15.3 gallon tank, and it gets around 25 miles to the gallon, so that should get me close to 400 miles to a gas tank. Now it says I got 3/4 of a tank, and I've only got 203 left. I've only been averaging like less than 300 a tank. So unless the bottom of the tank is like huge, I never really let it get below 1/4 of a tank, just because I drive like over 100 miles a day and I don't want to have to stop to get gas. So like every night or every other night, I'll usually fill it up. Something is off about this. I feel like if you're on 0 miles, you probably got a good like 100 miles to go. I'm a little afraid to test it, but that's my theory. Onto the center screen. It is a little slow compared to 2024 standards. Still works fine. It gets a little tripped up every once in a while, but I've been driving plenty of brand new 2023, 2024 vehicles, and their screens get caught up all the time as well. I did note one of my biggest pet peeves when I bought this car is you can't touch the screen when you're driving. You can when you're stopped, or at least less than 10 miles per hour. But once you start driving, you can't touch the screen anymore, and it drove me crazy. Well, it still kind of does, because after I drive a new car, which I have to a lot for this channel, I get back in here and I think I can touch the screen, and then I realize I can't. But that's why you have this center joystick, and I will say you get really, really good at this really, really fast, and you can cruise through all the signals and kind of do it by touch without even really looking at the screen. So it's not as much of an issue now having the car, but at first, if I was test driving it and another car had the touch screen, and I liked that car as well. This might be the breaking point to not get the Mazda, and they've kind of been sticking to that with their new cars too, where they don't want you to touch the screen, and it's a little bit frustrating, especially as the screens are starting to get bigger. I'm actually happy with this screen. I think it's perfect size. I don't need my entire dashboard to be screened. This is all I really need. As long as my car tells me where it's going, it might send me a text message, have Apple CarPlay, I'm completely content with this. I think this car has just enough technology. It's not overwhelming, and it's not a bunch of stuff that can break. It's like the perfect blend of a pure driver's car and some good tech to go with it. And this one also has the heads-up display, which you can't see right now on the camera, but I was a little skeptical of that at first too, but now I don't even look down in the cluster. I always just look in the windshield, and it's super convenient. I will give props to Mazda on their awesome heads-up display. Just gonna take it for a super quick test drive just to show you that there's no weird squeaks or rattles or anything. I'll even shut the air conditioning off so you don't hear that. I had someone on my TikTok complain that theirs rattled and squeaked and just fell apart, and I was like, what are you talking about? There's none of that in this car. So let's just go for a quick drive, and I'll show you that there's nothing here. I mean, the most squeaking you're gonna hear is me rolling through the leather seats. I think it still drives just like brand new, or at least as new as when I bought it. No weird noises, everything works as it should, and it's slow. This is pedal to the metal. I told you it's slow. But it's tolerable. I mean, it keeps me out of trouble too, because you don't really need to be speeding in LA. And that noise you just heard was my backpack flying around in the back. It's not something to deceive you from the rattles of the car. It really is quiet. I'm gonna throw it into sport mode really quick, and we can get a little bit of pep out of it. Sport mode is better, I will say. If you're in a bind and you need some power quick, do put it in sport mode. Does rev a little louder, gets moving a little quicker, kind of gives it a little bit of an attitude, but I think that turbocharged model would be the real answer to this problem. The only thing I can think of that kind of drives me a little crazy when I'm driving, I noted this on the initial video too, is the shifter. I like to just keep my hand there. I'm actually thankful it's still an old school column shifter, but sometimes I accidentally flip it to the manual mode. It's really easy to do, and you can probably hear the car revving a lot higher right now because it is in that manual mode, and it's just so easy to tap. I'm gonna put it back here, and you can hear it instantly downshifts again. So that's a little bit annoying because it is easy to trip. I can even just do it with my fingertips. But I think that's a pretty minor complaint for this car. It handles so much better than any other SUV I've driven lately in this class. The other ones just feel like kind of cheap cars, and this feels like it's got a little bit of that Mazda zoom attitude, and you can really cut the corners with it. I still enjoy driving this car, especially on longer trips. And it's got all the tech features you need. It's got the radar cruise control, lane keep assist. And when you're stuck in LA traffic, I tend to forget, but then I use it and I'm like, oh yeah, this car will basically drive itself when you're in slow traffic. So most cars have that now, but the Mazda system is really good. It doesn't interfere with you. Some of them will just grab the wheel and jerk it out of your hand, and I really don't like that. The Mazda one's really subtle. If you're kind of creeping out of your lane and the lane keep assist is on, it'll just kind of nudge you back in and be like, hey, heads up. And it doesn't beep all the time. So many cars like incessantly beep and drive you insane. This thing barely beeps. Maybe if you got the forward collision alert set on a really sensitive setting, it's gonna beep every once in a while. But beyond that, the car doesn't beep at me. Marty keeps his mouth shut, and I like that. On to the fun stuff. Let's break down some numbers about how much Marty has cost me during his lifetime. I got a bunch of notes and a coffee, so let's dive in. Right, so I picked up Marty with 25,000 miles. I don't know the exact history of what happened before, but I'm gonna assume that the previous owner was a good owner and took good care of it. So I'm gonna say 5 oil changes, because I put on an additional 5 oil changes since then, and we both put on about the same amount of miles. So in total, 10 oil changes. Now, with inflation and everything, an oil change costs like $120. I do full synthetic every 5,000 miles because I want Martie to last. I'm gonna assume the last person did that too, but it was probably a little cheaper than before prices went nuts. So we're gonna say $100 per oil change times 10. That's $1,000 in oil changes and just regular services in its lifetime. Next up, I mentioned those tires. They were not cheap. I got Pirellis. I probably could have saved a couple $100 getting cheaper ones. But for all 4 tires, installation and everything, it costs exactly $1,000. That was at 34,000 miles. Just a few thousand miles later, at 38,000, I did have to replace the front brake pads and rotors. I thought that was very early. Now they are full ceramic pads, and I guess I do drive a lot. I'm in LA, I'm in traffic a lot, so they're gonna burn out a little bit faster. That was about $500 fully installed. If you do these things yourself, you know, you can save a little bit of money. I bet you probably could have did it for $300 doing it yourself. Next up, I noticed sometimes when it would sit for a while, it was kind of hard to start. Like it would barely start. And I was like, you know what, this battery sounds pretty weak. Well, I took it in for a regular service, said, can you check out the battery too? And they're like, the battery's fine. Well, wouldn't you know it, a week later, Martie left me stranded because it didn't start. And lucky for me, there was actually a AAA guy in that same parking lot just sitting around on his lunch break. So within like 10 minutes, I was sorted and got super lucky. And like 2 days later, I just went to the shop and said, replace the battery. Don't even test it, just replace it, no questions asked. $250, no problem since. And the car was like 5 years old at this point, almost 6. So that's about normal. You know, you don't consider mileage in the battery change, it's more of the age. So about 5 years was about right on. And then I just threw in like another $250 for miscellaneous filters, wipers, stuff like that you can just do yourself. I always replace all my own filters, and it's actually time for some wipers. So I'm thinking $250 is about right for that number. And I haven't had any bulbs go out, which is cool because this whole car is like LED or HID bulbs, which should last the entire length of the car. But if they don't, those do get expensive. So in total, 50,000 miles on Martie. It's been a total of $3,000 in total maintenance. So that's 6 cents per mile, just the number 6. So for every mile you drive, it costs you 6 cents in maintenance. Now I added gas to this as well. I looked at the average for the past 5 years in the US is significantly lower than I pay in California, but I'm gonna cater it to the whole country. Right around $3.03 a gallon has been the average for the last 5 years in the US. So I just did it $3. And it makes it easy because it gets 25 miles to the gallon. Like I said, 50,000 miles. That means Martie's gone through 2,000 gallons of gas. If we take 2,000 times $3, that gives us $6,000 in fuel expenses. So gas costs twice as much as maintenance. So about 12 cents per mile in gas is what you will spend on this car. If you add the 6 with the 12, you get a total of 18 cents a mile to run this car, which is crazy cheap. That gives you a ton of allowance between that and the federal allotment if you use this car to drive for work like I do, or any other tax purposes. You now in 2024 get 67 cents per gallon. So that leaves you plenty of room from that 18 between the purchase price, registration, insurance, and things like that. All in all, the Mazda CX-5 is a very affordable ride, and I think it looks a lot nicer than it costs. Because when you compare this car to other cars in its class, especially on the inside, the interior is many levels above. You might not get the highest tech stuff, but you're gonna get quality. And like I said, personally, I think the outside looks better too. Everyone has their own style, but I think the Mazda is an excellent value, and I can't wait to see what the 2026 model looks like. If it looks anywhere near as good as the current model, I'm gonna take one. I'm gonna get the turbocharged model, and I'm gonna get it in that crazy carbon red metallic color that Mazda has. I don't even know what it's called. I think it's called carbon red. I'm gonna show you a picture of it right now, but Mazda makes the best red out of any car manufacturer. Usually I'm not crazy about red, but this color is amazing. So I will be in line to buy one Mazda. If you make it faster, you keep it around the same price, and you keep that red color, I will definitely purchase a new one. I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to hear about your experiences with your CX-5. I hope they were as good as mine, but even if they're not, put them down below and make sure to subscribe and share this video with your fellow Mazda fans. I'll see you on the next one.